Usually in my videos, I'll show something I've made or something I've modified because I think that's more interesting. But in this case, I'm just going to show a product for what it is. I think it's worth it for what this product is and what it accomplishes. This is a DAP Audio IMIX 7.3 rack mount mixer. It's complete overkill for a mixer on a desk, and it's exactly why I've got it. It actually replaces a number of devices that I previously had on the desk. This small mixer, this splitter, this little switch box thing, headphone amplifier, and a level controller. So I used to have, well, 4 of these. This is a splitter, an AV splitter, which does sort of what it says on the tin. It used to have an input from the DAC I have here, and then it would feed out to the amplifier, the headphones, and to the record input on the tape deck as well. Biggest problem with this is it took 16 volts, 16 volt DC. So I needed to use one of these. Again, it worked. It didn't come with a power supply. It worked, but it picked up noise, and it's quite a big thing. So I also had this little mixer which had 4 volume controls, which have now been mapped to this thing. And again, it worked okay, RCA inputs and outputs, but there was no on and off switch for any of these inputs. So if you wanted to turn them off, you had to turn them down completely, which is really annoying when you have a gain level set. There was no separate gain level for these. And also it picked up a bit of noise. This was a switch that I originally made to control or switch between headphones and speakers on my work computer, and it is just a toggle switch. It works absolutely fine, but it's another thing. It's not shielded or anything. This is a line level controller. Not really very good. This was a cheap one from Amazon. I'm not really sure what it was intended for. It just has an input and an output, and it says G-Link. I don't know what that means. But this was used to control headphone volume, and before that I had this, which was a headphone amplifier, and this was designed to control headphone volume as well. This died because one of the sockets came off the board. It actually came off and took the tracks with it. But also, as you can see by the tin foil on it, it picked up a lot of noise. So I tried to shield it and it didn't work. When this actually came, when you change the volume here, it would actually go in and out between the left and right channel, which is a real pain. I sprayed it with some contact cleaner and got it working again. But the idea is get rid of all of this. I'm not gonna throw it as I sometimes would. Get rid of all of that and replace it with this lovely little thing. So I only started looking for a bigger replacement for the actual mini mixer, and I found that nothing suitable really existed to go on top of a desk. So nothing that was just a bigger version of that, which is what I originally started looking for. I didn't consider that a rack mount bit of kit would ever be a possibility. I thought it would be ridiculous. But when I started looking at what was available and I did some measurements, with this desk being turned around, so I now have a cutout at the back, it kind of made sense. This is an IKEA Freddy desk. I've spun it around, and yeah, I've now got a space at the back. I worked it out that I could make a hole at the back a little bit bigger, and then if I fitted the rack mount unit at the angle, 45-degree angle, it'd work. And I've always wanted to do something like this. For a while I considered getting a Eurorack case and building this setup with synth modules as well. Synth modules are all primarily designed to be mono, even the splitters and bits and pieces and the mixers, so it didn't really work out. And then I found this, along with the Tascam MZ223. So I looked at them both. I preferred the look of this one because it's got illuminated buttons and slightly less silly price for what I was going to be doing with it compared to the Tascam. The Tascam also lacks a couple of the features like the auxiliary input up here, which we'll come to. So to fit this on the desk, I'd already switched the top of the desk around. like I said, on this Freddy, so the cutout isn't at the front anymore, it's now at the back. I then needed to enlarge that cutout with my Makita oscillating multi-tool, and then I could slide this thing in. I 3D printed some pieces to go at the side, and those are the feet. By the way, Makita oscillating tool is a really good tool for this kind of thing, because this here is a brand new LG C2 42-inch TV, and you don't really want big spinning blades near this, or a jigsaw or anything like that. You don't want it near this and potentially damaging it. With the multi-tool, you can get in delicately and make those cuts without really risking damaging anything. So these 3D printed parts screw down to the desk, and then the mixer is bolted to them. The way this is angled, I can't quite reach around it to get to anything, but I can get to it from under the desk, or I can remove these 4 screws and just put it out and it'll just sit on the desk. It's got feet down here already and it'll just sit upright. So this device itself has 10 stereo RCA inputs. Has the microphone inputs here, which I'm really probably not going to use for RCA. These two, 1 and 2, also, they line switches are up here, but they can also be phono inputs. So you can switch between line or phono on the back, and I can have my Atelier P1 connected directly if I wanted to. Each input can be assigned to any of the outputs, so 1, 2, 3, or pre-fade, and that's including the microphones over there and the aux here. So how's that going to be useful to me? Well, I've got a number of inputs on here and I'm going to talk you through them. So number 1 input is my second computer, which you see on here. I had PC2, radio, amp, record out, and TV. And that's pretty much what I've got here as well. So yeah, so this is PC2 coming from my second computer. I've got that's what's actually on here. I've got the T2 Atelier radio, which is running. If I turn that on, hopefully you won't hear it. So you can see it's peaking at the minute. There is a gain control on the back and I need to adjust that, but if I turn that off, you'll see that you're still getting that there. Turn that off, nothing, and then master 1. I'll turn that off. So that's the radio. Then the amplifier record out is on number 3, which is kind of flaky at the moment. I think maybe the switches or the selector inside is damaged because it doesn't seem to work. But that's on 3, and that allows me to get any of the devices, so the cassette, the CD player, the Atelier, the record player, or the tuner can all be fed through that. It introduces some noise. And then, so they would all potentially be used on 1. And then output 1, I'll come to in a second. But then we have the TV. This C2, LG C2, actually has a headphone output or a line output. My previous Samsung didn't, so I ended up having an optical output which went to this DAC that I have on the side, and I would switch to it there, and then that would feed into the amplifier. Whereas this has a direct feed in from the TV. I can either have that set to 1, so it goes into the PC and then back out again, or I can have it set to 2, so it goes directly to the amplifier, and that's how I've been using it at the minute, finding it working rather well. And then finally 5 is the output from the PC, from the USB onto the DAC, and then out from the DAC into here. So this is the USB DAC that I keep mentioning. It has 3 inputs, USB, optical, and coax. So I might switch to optical soon because I'm currently having some issues with the noise on the USB. Has bass, treble controls that I don't use, and then it has the volume here. This originally was a smaller knob like these, but I changed it because it was too small, and I quite like to sit and control the volume with my left hand like that. Otherwise I'd probably just switch to using the PC's built-in inputs. It outputs to RCA, so that goes straight to the mixer. Decent basic device. So then our outputs, master 1 goes to the PC input, so that's my line in. Master 2 goes to the amplifier, that goes to the A1 amplifier up there. That's my master output, so for everything. And then master 3 goes to the record input on the cassette recorder, the Atlas C1 cassette deck. And that allows me to then record whatever I want from any of these inputs or outputs. And you've obviously got your controls here and volume controls there as well. I potentially might go back to using this for headphones. There is a headphone output here. It's a little bit noisy at the moment. I think maybe where I'm running this cable isn't ideal, but potentially I'll go back to headphones. And then you have an aux input. So if you have, for example, an old Sony Walkman, like this one, if it'll actually focus on it, you can connect it up directly to the aux input, and totally separately from this thing that's going on here, which I'll play in a second, you can have a little bit of music on there, which I'm not even going to tell you what it is, but that can play separately, completely separately, or you can put it as an input to the PC or whatever you want with any extra device. And it also has a mini 3.5mm jack below it, which is really handy. Oh, again, it has a phono switch here, so phono or line. Don't really understand why, because there's no grounding here. There are 2 grounding posts over here for 1 and 2 as phono, but this doesn't have grounding unless it's hidden and I haven't noticed. But yeah, that's a little bit of a strange one. So that's how I've got it set up. What I'll do is I'll turn on the separate controls I have on the Stream Deck, which allow me to turn on the line in. It also has, this is using voice meter, it also has mute, stereo to mono and bass controls. But if I turn that on, yes, of course it was going to be Cuba Bion. That's coming in through number 1 from the second PC that's playing next to me, and then it's going out of 2 to master 2. And that's the beauty of it, really. I can then set any one of these. You can go away. I can set any one of these as headphones as well. So do that. I'll hear anything that's on 5, so that's the output from the PC. If I want to hear that input directly, I can now hear it going next to me. That's a bit loud, but then you can adjust it there as well. So I'm really happy with the way this is set up. Hopefully it'll continue to work quite well. One thing is it does get quite hot, and the power switch is at the back around here, so I have it set up on a remote controlled socket, which also has a manual switch fitted in, so I can just turn it on and off like that, or do it with remote control. But yeah, I've got plenty of options for expansion. It looks good here, it's nice and sturdy. As long as I keep these clean, it should be absolutely fine. The build quality, this is cheaper than the Tascam. Build quality seems fine. These nice illuminated buttons don't seem like they're going to fall off. Maybe they will. These lights are a bit bright, but I was going to cover them over. This light down here I've covered with some of the light dim stickers. But you can't do it on these because they're slightly raised. So maybe I'll go in there and adjust that. But it's been fine so far. I've had this about a month. It's been okay. And I don't find these annoying either. They're absolutely fine. And it's always handy to have that input level knowing that there's something there, because previously I didn't know. So yeah, I hope this has been vaguely interesting. It's nice to show something that I'm impressed with. So I'm going to end this here, and thank you for watching.